ओम अज्ञानतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानञ्जनाशलाखया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंदा। हरे कृष्णा कृष्णा कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। My voice is clear?
Very clear, Prabhu.
Okay, fine. Okay. So Hare Krishna, everybody. I was just thinking today, Rameshwari Mataji didn't send me a link, so I thought maybe it's cancelled. So I was waiting at 7:30. Okay. So last time we had discussed some things about the topic. So we are discussing about the mad elephant offense, which is Vaishnava Aparadh. And so some of the things which we discussed a little bit, I'll repeat last time. So we discussed how when we do sense gratification, right, either right legally or illegally, whatever, we turn our back towards Krishna. But when we do Vaishnava Aparadh, Krishna turns his back on us. So this is a very important thing to remember always. Right? So if the whole world has opened their eyes to see us, but if Krishna closes his eyes on us, then what is the use? Right? So we might be even glorified by everybody, but if Krishna closes his eyes on us, then we have lost everything. Right? So this is what happens when we do Vaishnava Aparadh, when we offend Vaishnavas. Right? So because Krishna cannot tolerate, Krishna can tolerate any offenses unto him or even to his holy name, right? But he cannot tolerate anything which is done for his devotees. Right? So therefore, it's a very, and that is why Shri Narottam Das Thakur says, Hari sthane aparade, tare hari naam, Tomasthane aparade, nahi paritra. Right? So there is no offenses to the Lord, then you can at least take shelter of the holy name. But if you commit offenses to a Vaishnava, which is the first actually Nam Aparadh, the most deadliest, the first Nam Aparadh, then there is no solution. There is no other solution other than to ask forgiveness from the Vaishnava whom we have appointed, Vaishnava or Vaishnavi whom we have offended, and to perform seva or service, somehow or please that devotee. So we also discussed that this is a healthy fear. There are right, different kinds of fears, unhealthy fears and healthy fears. So this is healthy fear, to fear Maya and to fear Vaishnava Aparadh. So there is nothing wrong in that. Sometimes devotees take it very casually that we should not fear anything. Right? We should not be paranoid about Vaishnava Aparadh. Yes, definitely we should not be paranoid about it. We should not be what do you say, too much fearful and get discouraged and all. But at the same time, we can have a healthy fear about Vaishnava Aparadh. We should definitely not take it casually. Or we should never think that now I am exempted because it's been few years in Krishna consciousness and I am a senior Vaishnava or Vaishnavi. Right? So we should never think like that. So also, we should never think that if because I am a Vaishnava and I am fighting with other Vaishnavas, therefore there is no problem. Right? So because I am a Vaishnava. Right? So this is also illusion. When Krishna sees if there's some disturbance. Okay. So when a mother or father, when they see that two children are fighting, Both are their children. But if two children are fighting, then both get bashed up by the mother and father. Both get reprimanded, hmm, by the mother and father. So like that, if two Vaishnavas are also fighting, both get reactions for it. Hmm. So we should be careful, therefore, and should not think that there is any kind of exemption for us. Yeah. So why the garden example is given, we discussed this also, but I'm repeating because it's very important to keep these things in mind. Why the garden example is given, that a mad elephant comes and destroys a garden. Right? Some other example could have been given, but a garden example is given because it takes years and years to build a very nice garden. So similarly, the creeper of devotional service is there. So it takes years and years to nurture that creeper, right? And we have to build a fence over the creeper so that the creeper is not affected, especially by the mad elephant. Right? So what is this mad elephant? This mad elephant is Vaishnava Brahma. Right? Just like a mad elephant, what does a mad elephant do? It uproots the plants. So like that, so Vaishnava uproots. So what is the meaning of uprooting? Means what? Right? Uprooting means pulling out from the root itself. So then what happens? Then we systematically dry out. It is actually His Holiness Jayapatak Sai Maharaj, one of the sessions, he said, if we expose ourselves to Vaishnava Prat, then we systematically dry out. This is, we lose the taste for all types of devotional services, including chanting, reading, deity worship, book distribution, or any kind of services which we are doing. Right. So, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur also mentions that there are four kinds of aparadhas. Uh, Jiva aparadha is there, then there is Seva aparadha, then there is Nama aparadha, and Vaishnava aparadha. Of course, there is Dhama aparadha also separately. Right. So he mentions these four offenses, and the most deadliest he says is Vaishnava aparadha. Right. So, so just like a garden takes so much of endeavor, so much of austerity, so much of hard work, and so much of patience, years of hard work. Right. So our devotional service also, years and years of hard work can be destroyed just by committing offenses to Vaishnavas. So therefore, Vaishnavas, they are Vancha Kalpataru, right? They are Kalpataru. Kalpataru means desire fulfilling. So if dealt in a positive way, then they can actually, they are like desire trees. Vancha Kalpataru Vyasya Kripa Sindhu Devacha. And so they are like desire trees. They can actually uh, take us so high in devotional service. We can make very good progress if we are dealing with Vaishnavas very carefully, very respectfully. Right? But if not dealt with properly, then they will destroy us both materially and spiritually. So Vaishnava Aparadh, it actually causes material destruction and spiritual destruction both. So I've seen many examples, and I've faced them myself also. Right. So health is affected physically and even mentally. Right. Then wealth is affected. If somebody is grahasthas and all, wealth is affected. Right. So health, wealth, and everything. Right. Almost everything. And materially speaking, and spiritually also. Right. So in the Madhya Leela, 19.156. Right. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, sorry, Sri Rupa Goswami says, यदि वैष्णव अपराध उठे हति मता upadeva chinde tara sukhi yaya pata. This is if the devotee commits an offense at the feet of a Vaishnava while cultivating the creeper of devotional service in the material world, his offense is compared to a mad elephant that uproots the creeper and breaks it. In this way, the leaves of the creeper are dried up. Right. So So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada mentions that even if somebody is disobeying the instructions of the spiritual master, then that is which is called as Guru Avagya. That is also like committing offense to the spiritual master. So Srila Prabhupada writes, such an offense is especially created when one disobeys the instructions of the spiritual master. This is called Guru Avagya. The devotee must therefore be very careful not to commit offenses against the spiritual master by disobeying his instructions. As soon as one is deviated from the instructions of the spiritual master, the uprooting of the bhakti lata begins, and gradually all the leaves dry up. Right? So, this is a warning here given by Srila Prabhupada. Right? In the same purport, he says, one should always think of oneself as a servant of the Acharyas, and thinking this, one should live in the society of Vaishnavas.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandarpanam. Prabhu, that sloka number.
Madhya 19.156. Right, so two verses are there, 156 and 157. Yes. So, one has to be in the association of Vaishnavas, but one should live in the society of Vaishnavas. But Srila Prabhupada says one should always think of oneself as a servant of the Acharyas, and there is no exemption at any time. Right? Just like an expert driver, if he thinks that I have been driving for years together now I don't have to open my eyes while driving. Now I can drive anyhow. I don't have to be careful while driving. No, then they'll commit accident. Most of the accidents are committed by experienced drivers because they are careless while driving, because they become lax, because they think now it's okay. So therefore, there is a tendency of our mind always to think like this. The tendency of the mind is to become lax in everything. So therefore, we should always remind ourselves about the basics. These are the basics. Vaishnava, right? It's not that this is this for the first time you must be hearing all these things. You must have heard it hundreds of times, right? But there is still a chance that we commit offenses. We take it lightly. We take these warnings also lightly. We learn the hard way. There are two ways to learn. One is just read the scriptures or hear the scriptures and learn. The other way is to get bashed up and learn. Right? So getting bashed up and learning is not a very intelligent way of learning. So therefore, one must always take this warning very, very seriously. So while dealing with Vaishnavas, while dealing with even if somebody is in management, we discussed last time, if right, managers are not exempted. No one is exempted. Right? And it's not that if we are dealing with junior Vaishnavas, then we are exempted. This is applicable only for senior Vaishnavas. No. Right? Senior, junior, all types of Vaishnavas one must be very respectful while dealing with Vaishnavas. And even if the opposite Vaishnava may act in a improper way, still one has to be careful. Even that is not an excuse. Right? This is also what we discussed last time. Right? Is that in the case of Jay and Vijay, the Kumaras they stopped Jay and Vijay. So in that episode, the Lord comes out right at the gate, and he actually tells the four Kumaras that you are very dear to me because you are Brahmanas. This is Brahmanas and Vaishnavas. So in the purport it is given, right? The Brahmanas and Vaishnavas, even if they do anything wrong, still that must be tolerated because they are not ordinary persons. So this is even for beginner Vaishnavas also. So even managers also, they cannot just act out of false ego, then there'll be offenses. So all in all, one must be very careful while dealing, and there are no, what do you say, exemptions. So in the next verse, Madhya Leela 19.157, right, it is given. Tate mali yatna kari kare avarana aparada hastiraya chena hai udgama. The gardener must defend the creeper by fencing it all around so that the powerful elephant of offenses may not enter. The gardener must defend the creeper by fencing it all around so that the powerful elephant of offenses may not enter. So this is again a warning that one must. So this is so in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says that indirectly he says that the root of offenses is association with non-devotees. So Srila Prabhupada says that when associates with non-devotees, the maddened elephant is set loose. Right. So we also discussed the root of offenses last time, right? Pride and other things and all. So one more right, which is given in this purport is when one associates with non-devotees, Srila Prabhupada says, the maddened elephant is set loose. The first business of a Vaishnava is to give up the company of non-devotees. So we should check, therefore, whether we are in any way associating with non-devotees. Nowadays, association can be electronic also. It can be just maybe reading something mundane also. So not that one is physically in touch, but then somehow or other, if we are in touch with non-devotees electronically or through any means, so there one should be very careful about that also, because that Srila Prabhupada says is the root, right, of Vaishnava path. In the same purport, Srila Prabhupada says, even if one thinks that there are many pseudo devotees or non-devotees in the Krishna conscious society, still one should stick to the society. If one thinks the society's members are not pure devotees, one can keep direct company with the spiritual master. And if there is any doubt, one should consult the spiritual master. Then he says, however, unless one follows the spiritual master's instructions concerning the regulative principles and chanting and hearing the holy name of the Lord, one cannot become a pure devotee. By one's mental concoctions, one falls down. So again, back to the basics here. Right? 4 regulative principles: chanting, hearing, reading, Srila Prabhupada's books. These are basics. And the basics, yeah, we cannot remove the basics from our spiritual life. So we should collect all the basics together and keep reading the basics and keep introspecting whether we are doing the basics properly or not. The basics are like a foundation. Right? Supposing if a building is built on a foundation, and then somebody thinks that now the foundation is not required, let us remove the foundation. Right? So we have to understand we cannot do that. The foundation always remains, even if the building is built. So similarly, right, 4 regulative principles very strictly, no prajalpa, no here and there, chanting, reading, hearing properly, dealing with the devotees very properly, dealing with non-devotees properly, not taking any non-devotee association, right? Following the festivals properly, Ekadashi properly, not eating from outside, which is non-prasadam items. These are all basics, and these have to be followed very nicely. Otherwise, one thing leads to another. Yeah. So Vaishnava Aparadha is so serious that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu even told his own mother. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told his own mother, Sachi Devi. Right? He didn't spare even his mother. He told Sachi Mata that you have committed offense to Advaita Acharya, and therefore you can never attain the mercy of Krishna. Therefore, you can never go home back to Godhead. So you have committed an offense against Sri Advaita Acharya in your mind. So Sachi Devi, she became very frightful when she heard this from her own son, right? And the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Sachi Mata was a very simple, humble, and innocent devotee. It is given like that, right? And of course, we know that. So, somehow that she accepted this, and then she asked, ki, okay, how can I now? First of all, she asked, what have I done? What is my mistake against Advaita Acharya? So then Lord Chaitanya said that when your elder son, right, my older brother, Vishwarup, he took sannyas, right, within your mind, you were blaming Advaita Acharya for influencing my older brother Vishwarup to take sannyas. Because Vishwarup was always going to Advaita Acharya's house for association, right, for hearing Srimad Bhagavatam and Kirtan, etc. So, therefore, you were thinking within your heart that when he left, it was because of Advaita Acharya's influence. So, therefore, you have committed offense against him. So then Mother Sachi Devi, she actually asked, how do I atone for this offense? And then Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that you should take the dust from the feet of Sri Advaita Acharya. Right? So then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu made a plan for that, and he told Sachi Mata that when Advaita Acharya comes, I will manifest to him my right, form, and then he will bow down to me. And as soon as he bows down, you come out from the back, and he should not see you, and you should take the dust from his feet. So that happened, and then actually Advaita Acharya came to know, and Advaita Acharya was very, very embarrassed, right? But Sachimata, she asked forgiveness that I have committed an offense to your lotus feet. Please forgive me. So we can see how serious this Vaishnava Aparadh was. That through Sachi Mata, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to give us a lesson for everybody. Right. So then there is one more episode in the Chaitanya Charitamrita about Srivas Pandit and Gopal Chapal. So there was a Brahmana named Gopal Chapal. Right. So this Gopal Chapal, he was a Devi worshipper. Right. So in Bengal, even today, actually, there is always a competition between Devi worshippers and Vaishnavas, Kali worshippers and Vaishnavas. Right. Even to this day, there is always competition going on. So Srivas Pandit is Narad Muni, and he was very exalted Vaishnava, and everybody knew about this. So Gopal Chapal, he was a Brahmana, and he was very envious of Srivas Pandit's influence. So what he did, he actually collected all the worship ingredients for Devi worship, for Kali worship. Right, so Kali worship includes red sandalwood, some flowers, different kinds of flowers, then a pot of wine and meat and other things and all like that. So he kept it on the veranda of Shiva's Pandit. So the next day, when Shiva's Pandit he came to the veranda, he got up and came to the veranda. He saw all these things. So he called all the respectable gentlemen there in his village and told them, look, secretly I am worshipping, all of you should know that secretly I am worshipping Bhavani at night. Bhavani means Durga or Kali. So I am worshipping Bhavani at night, you see, and somebody has caught me doing this. So they all understood, right? And so first of all, they cleaned everything, it is given. And then within 3 days it is given, in the next verse only it is given that within 3 days Gopal Chapal he contracted leprosy. Right? He got leprosy, and very, very, very terrible form of leprosy. His whole body was affected, and there were germs which were biting him. The leprosy germs were biting him. So he was suffering like anything. So, because leprosy is contagious, so therefore he was thrown out of the village. So, outside the village, he used to uh, be there under a tree and all. He suffered and suffered. And one day he saw Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu walking by. So, he fell at the feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, in the purport, it is given that Gopal Chapal had one quality, that it was simple. Right? Simplicity was there. So, therefore, he fell at the feet. He understood his offense. So, he fell at the feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and he asked forgiveness. So, at that time, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he says, that, Are papi bhakta deshi, tore na uddhari mo. Right? I shall not deliver you, O sinful person, O right, one who is envious of pure devotees, bhakta dveshi, are papi, bhakta deshi, torena uddhari mo. Koti janma e mata kidaya khayanu. Right, for 10 million births, right, 10 million, right, 1 crore births, koti janma, 1 crore births, 10 million births. In this way, I will have this leprosy. I'll have this, what to say, kidaya khaino means I'll have this germs eat you. So it's not only one janma, right? It's not that the birth is over and the leprosy will be gone. No, it's just 1 crore, 10 million births. You will have leprosy and these germs will eat you. Right? So just imagine Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saying this, right? Uh, so then Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he afterwards he accepted the renounced order of life and he went to Jagannath Puri. And then one day, after years, he came back to the village of Kulia, it is given. And again, Gopal Chapal, he took shelter of the Lord's lotus feet. So at that time, after years, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he gave him instructions. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, you have committed an offense at the lotus feet of Shiva's Thakur. First, you must go there and beg for his mercy. And then, if he gives you his blessings and you do not commit such sins again, you will be freed from these reactions. So, we have to note this very carefully what Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said. One is that you go to Shiva's Thakur and you beg for his mercy. So we can see here the Lord does the same thing in any case of Vaishnava. In the case of Durvasa Muni went to Lord Brahma, the offense could not be mitigated. Lord Brahma could not do anything. Durvasa Muni went to Lord Shiva could not do anything. Durvasa Muni went to Lord Vishnu, and Lord Vishnu said, I am helpless. I cannot do anything. It's not in my power. Right? Why? Because I am controlled by my devotees. Right? Such devotees like Ambarish Maharaj, who didn't budge an inch also, who didn't, right, what do you say, retaliate. Right? So, such devotees, Lord Vishnu said, I am controlled by such devotees. So, if there is only one solution, even I cannot forgive. You must go back to the devotee. So, here, same thing Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is saying, that I cannot do anything, but you can go and two things he says. First, you go and beg for his mercy, Shiva's Pandits, and if he gives his blessings, that is the first condition. Second is you do not commit such sins again. So we have to see two things are there, that we beg forgiveness from any Vaishnava, or we serve such Vaishnavas in order to please them, right? So that within their heart they forgive us. Or sorry, not or, and we do not go on committing offenses like this. So Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, if you do not commit such sins again, then you will be freed from these reactions. So then it is given Gopal Chapal, he went to Shiva's Thakur and took shelter, and then he was freed from all this leprosy and everything. Right. So, so Vaishnava Aparadha is real. It is not an illusion, and at no point of time we should be lax or casual about this. And we should always take it very seriously. We are doing so many austerities, and devotional service is not an easy thing. It's difficult. It takes years to make progress, but one can simply destroy it just by not controlling one's false ego, not controlling one's anger, and right, there can be great destruction. So this should become our default attitude. Our default attitude towards Vaishnava should be that of respect, of service, and a mood of pleasing the Vaishnavas, whatsoever they are. And one may choose to select association with Vaishnavas, those who are serious Vaishnavas. That Srila Prabhupada allows. He says that if you feel that pseudo Vaishnavas are there, or pure devotees are not there, then we may choose to associate with the spiritual master. So one may choose very selectively to take association. But when it comes to dealings, then one must be careful with every Vaishnava. I'd like to stop here. If there are any questions, I can take some questions. Yes, Ambika Mataji, and then Lalita Pritimai Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Please accept my humble
Please
obeisances.
accept my Mataji.
So I have some questions about this topic. So first I wanted to ask that if there is a negative experience about some devotee who has been misbehaving or neglecting services or something like this, and we need to talk about the situation to somebody, is it an offense to talk about it? Or is it an offense to mention that particular devotee by name?
Yes. So it can be an offense and it cannot be an offense depending upon how we discuss. What is our mood while discussing? What is the objective of the discussion? Right. So many a times the objective of the discussion is to find fault. Many a times the object of discussion is to feel superior by seeing that somebody is inferior. Right. So envy is there within our heart also. So when we are into management especially, then we have to do such things. But even at that time, one must be careful. Right. So what is my mood? Supposing if I'm trying to discuss because I want to correct a subordinate Vaishnava, then even that must be done very carefully with the proper mood. Right. So what is the mood here? The mood is that the institution is important. Both things have to be seen. Devotees have to be seen, and at the same time, we have to protect the institution also. We have to protect ISKCON's interests. So, in order to protect the institution, sometimes we may have to take some disciplinary action for some Vaishnavas. So, but even in that case, one must remember that we are dealing with a Vaishnava or a Vaishnavi. So, same kind of, it cannot be a corporate kind of dealing. Right? We are not a company. We are an organization, but we are not like a firm or something. We can deal in any way with anybody. There will be reactions. So therefore, one must be careful with the proper intent. we have to check our own intents also. We have to check with what purpose we are discussing. What is the objective of the discussion? If the objective of the discussion is to save the institution and therefore some disciplinary action be taken, and only that much should be taken, or only that much should be discussed, whatever is necessary. Not that one hours and hours one somebody is discussing about or criticizing other, or finding faults with other Vaishnavas. Whatever is necessary and whatever action is necessary, that much it should be done very carefully. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Hare Krishna.
Can I ask another question at the same time?
I'll come back to you after Lalita Priti Mataji.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yes, Lalita Priti Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna,
Dandavad
Hare
Pranam.
Krishna. I remember you being in one of the Bhakti Shastri classes many years back.
Yes, Prabhu. And even you taught to us like a Bhakti Vaibhav Canto 4 also.
Okay. Right.
Section.
Yes.
So nice to see you after a long time, Prabhu.
Same here. Yes.
Prabhu, my question is like you talk so like very elaborately about this committing Vaishnava aparadh, and you also talk a little bit about this all the neglecting thing. So my question is like when we have this habit of neglect, so how do we overcome that? So how do we change that? So because being neglectful, we may hurt our seniors, or we may not do our service in a particular time. So
Yes.
how to overcome this habit of neglect?
Yeah, so therefore, constant hearing about basics have to be there. So not only about Vaishnava Prad, we have to hear about chanting all the time. We have to hear about chanting is a topic which may be there in every lecture we hear, but that is also necessary for us. We have to hear lectures which are dedicated for careful chanting, attentive chanting. We have to hear lectures about we have to read here about the basics, about following regulatory principles, about not taking anything else other than offered items to the Lord. So all basics we have to keep hearing. So Vaishnava Praj is also one of the basics. So one must keep hearing, because our mind has a tendency to forget. Intelligence is right. Prayana alpayasya sabya kalavasmin yuge janaha manda samanda matayo manda bhagya hi upadritaha. So intelligence is also limited. Then we get overwhelmed by our false ego. We get overwhelmed by situations. We get overwhelmed by anger. We get overwhelmed by lust. We get overwhelmed by greed. We get overwhelmed by so many of our anarthas. Therefore, constant awareness has to be there. So that awareness is keep hearing. We should have a plan that I will hear about Vaishnava Prad. I'll hear about chanting. I'll hear. When will I hear? So we should make a plan like that. Otherwise, there is no way. Right? Then we have to learn the hard way. The hard way is definitely not a good way to learn. Right? So we will. Right? There are so many repercussions. Right? We just like one of the things which we discussed last time was Saubhari Muni. Saubhari Muni, right? He was thousands of years within the water. He was not agitated, but as soon as he committed offense, immediately got affected. He committed offense against Garuda, and then immediately he felt as if he should go out and get into sense gratification. And then for a long time he was implicated like this. So our anarthas, they are multiplied when we commit Vaishnava Prad. And we are only able to control our anarthas and keep them down because Krishna is helping us. And why is Krishna helping us? Because we are dealing nicely with the Vaishnavas. If you don't deal nicely with the Vaishnavas, then Krishna says, okay, you deal with your anarthas yourself. I'm not going to help you now. You deal with lust, you deal with anger, you deal with right, all your anarthas, you deal with them, and we are not able to. We will not be able to. Right, and Vaishnava aparadh is progressive. We discussed that also last time. One aparadh leads to another, and then another, and then one progresses from devotee to guru to the Supreme Lord. Ramchandra Puri, right? He first committed offense against Vaishnavas. Then he graduated in Vaishnava aparadh and committed Vaishnava aparadh against his own guru Madhavendra Puri. He started advising him, and then he post graduated and he went on to committed offense against the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Right. So Vaishnava Aparadh is very progressive. So keeping all these things in mind, one must make plans for reminding oneself about the importance of all this.
Yes, thank you, Prabhu. That was so
Thank-
helpful for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Yes, we can go back to Ambika Mataji.
Okay, thank you. I had a question about a similar topic about neglectfulness, but also you mentioned about the seniority, juniority, and this superiority kind of complex. So how do we deal with such a situation if there's a senior devotee and who is like neglectful in such a way that, okay, I don't need to communicate with this devotee because she's not in such a position, and then maybe it affects on like something else, and if there's other such attitudes as well from a senior devotee.
Yes. So if any senior devotees are behaving improperly or speaking improperly, the golden rule is that we don't correct them if we are junior, and we should talk to either their senior or at least their equal who can correct them or whom they will listen to. If we try to correct, then there is a chance we will commit Vaishnava Aparadh. Right? Unless the situation is so bad that there is nobody else to correct, then we can put the facts in a very polite and respectful way. A very respectful way, right? If there is nobody else, but the golden rule is that we don't do it. We don't correct. We should have the authority to correct. A junior Vaishnava or a Vaishnavi does not have the authority to correct senior Vaishnavas. They may be senior in different ways. So one should therefore go consult other Vaishnavas who are senior and ask them to speak to the concerned Vaishnava. Right? So that is the proper way.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, there is one question in the chat. I'll take that and then I'll take Namrata Mataji's question. So, how do we deal with Ritvik Vaishnava? Yeah. So we have in our right society somehow or other there has been a faction, and we have Ritvik Vaishnavas and we have non-Ritvik Vaishnavas. So philosophically there is a difference, right? But at the same time, our senior Vaishnavas, the GBC, they have allowed Ritviks to be in ISKCON. There are many Ritviks who are within ISKCON, but they are not preaching with this philosophy. Right? So we should deal with them as we deal with anybody else, any other Vaishnava. We should be respectful towards them. At the same time, we may choose not to associate with them or hear Ritvik philosophy. We should definitely not hear Ritvik philosophy. Ritvik philosophy itself is offensive. right, which considers that there are no other gurus other than Srila Prabhupada, right? And that itself is offensive. So we should not get into any kind of discussion with them, because then they will speak up. If they speak about it, it will be offensive even to hear such kind of philosophy. So we should choose not to associate with them, but at the same time we should also not criticize them. That will also be Vaishnava Aparadh, right? And um, uh, on a higher level, there are senior devotees who know how to deal with this, right? So whatever decisions are taken by them, we should respect that and carry on accordingly. So that is about Ritvik Vaishnava. Namrata Mataji?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Danvat Pranam.
Dharat Ram, yes, yes.
Prabhuji, I have this question, like if we are at the end of false criticism on a regular basis because of enviousness, how do we handle it? Like initially we may try to ignore it for a long time, but then if it's repeated, we also may end up being offensive. So how do we handle that?
Yes, yes. So, it is said in English that two wrongs don't make a right. Right? If somebody is wrong in criticizing us, so first of all, we should see who is criticizing and why the person is criticizing. Maybe they are criticizing for our benefit. So when it comes to us, we should always take it as correction, as feedback, and we should check, because generally what happens is all of us, we tend to become lawyers, right, when it is about others, and judge. We tend to become a judge when it is about others, and we become lawyers when it is about us. When it is others criticism, right, we judge others, but when it comes to us, then we defend ourselves also. So that is a general tendency. So the general tendency of the mind is nobody should find criticism with me. That is the general tendency of the mind. But there are cases also wherein there is no fault of ours, and somebody is criticizing out of envy, right, or out of false ego, out of their own pride. So at that time, one must, in general, one must tolerate. That is the meaning of Trinadapi Sunichena Taro Rapi Sahistuna. Amani Namanadina Kirtaniya Sadahari. One must tolerate at that time. At the same time, one can defend oneself, but one should not attack. One should not retaliate. Right. This we are learning from Narad Muni and the snake example. Right. So Narad Muni had this snake disciple. Narad Muni has all kinds of disciples. He had this snake as a disciple. And the snake, when he became a disciple of Narad Muni, he stopped biting. But people threw stones at the snake. So then Narad Muni, the next day, he told the snake that when they come next time, you raise your hood, but you don't bite. So that is a formula, right? Raising the hood, but not biting. So we can defend ourselves, or we can even take the help of a senior Vaishnava. But not that we do the same thing, we start criticizing them, we retaliate, it becomes a messy affair. Then we will also get the reactions. Just like in the beginning of the session, I said, if two children are fighting, then mother will come and bash of both of them, not one of them. Right. So yes, if we just simply retaliate and we start criticizing the opposite Vaishnava who is criticizing us, then we also get Vaishnava. The other Vaishnava we will also get, and because we are also chanting. Right. So therefore we should not retaliate but tolerate, and if it goes on too much, then we can defend ourselves, and we can take shelter of other senior Vaishnavas, report to them, take help from them.
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes. Okay, I think so. time is also up. So should we stop here? Prashanta Mataji is there.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Can I add one question?
Yes, Mataji. Please,
Yeah,
you don't
many
have to take my
times.
permission. Yes, please, please. Yeah.
Many times I've heard from devotees that after hearing classes on this topic, they kind of become afraid to associate with devotees, and and then they start isolating themselves or avoiding sanghas, because they think that, you know, as soon as you mix with devotees, that's it, you start committing offenses, and then your devotional creeper is affected. So what would you say to that? Because I remember hearing this quite a few times, that no, I don't go to the temple because I'm going to commit offense. I don't belong to any sangha because of this risk. It's too much of a risk to commit offense.
Well, you know the answer. You can answer this much better than I can.
No. We want to hear from you, Prabhu.
Okay, Mataji. So I would say that association is something which has to be there in the beginning of spiritual life, in the middle of spiritual life, and even at an advanced stage. One cannot, right? There is no bhakti yoga without association. So there are slokas, there are verses given like that, that one must have association. Otherwise, the creeper will dry out. So, so therefore, if somebody makes a conclusion like that, so that is also dangerous, right? So if one is selective about association, fine, but one must have association, right? And at the same time, one should not criticize anybody else, right? Any Kanishta Vaishnavas for that matter, and one should not shun away from association, but one must have association, I should say. So if they are not associating in a particular group or something, they should have association somewhere else, some other Vaishnavas whom they think that they can get nourishment from, right? But definitely one must have association, and one should not, in the beginning only I was saying, one should not become paranoid about Vaishnava Prad, right? So it's not becoming overly afraid of Vaishnava association. No, not like that. So there are, just like Srila Prabhupada used to say also, that I am hearing my disciples give Srimad Bhagavatam class, right? So Srila Prabhupada writes in that, don't become a Paramhamsa. Don't artificially act like a Paramahamsa, meaning that yes, you can, you take association. So one has to have a balance, I would say, that one should not just think that everybody here is a pseudo Vaishnava, and so that is generally the tendency of a Kanishta Vaishnava to think like that also. Right, that I am superior to all the Vaishnavas here, and nobody is worthy of my association. So if somebody is thinking like that, that is also wrong. Yes. Please add. You're muted, Mataji.
Yes, thank you, Prabhu. And this is definitely a genuine fear that the devotees have. And as you have clearly stated, we cannot just shun Vaishnava association due to fear of a parad. And as you have also rightly pointed out, it may not just be fear of a parad, but it can be also pride and lack of humility. I'll just tell a small story. When I was a very new devotee, I was in the ashram, the temple, and yeah, somehow or other, when you are a new devotee, you start hearing the classes, and then you get some kind of image of what a Vaishnava is like, and then you go back to the ashram, and you get another image of what a Vaishnava is like, because all neophyte devotees, many of them are in the ashram, and it just doesn't look like what is described in the Shastra. So one day I somehow had a little conflict in the ashram, and then I was taken to the temple president. So I was explaining him that, I don't know what to do, because they just don't behave the way they should. They are not good association. They just don't behave the way they're supposed to. They. And the answer of the temple president for me remained engraved in my consciousness forever. He just looked at me. He was a Britisher, and he had these stoic eyes and just looked at me in a very cool way, and but a very severe way at the same time. And he just said, "Who do you think you are to deserve good association?" And it was such a shocking answer, that who do you think you are to deserve good association? And he said, first deserve, and then you will get. Yeah. And then he added a few more things, but his answer was, for me, like, really, it became written in stone, that we should always be humble.
Yes.
And we should always be humble.
Yes, yes.
So this is the secret, actually, for avoiding Vaishnava aparadha: humility and respect. And I say we take shelter of the Lord at every step, because we are prone to, usually aparadha occurs when our ego gets ruffled, or when our mind, goes out of control.
Yes.
So bhakti is not about renouncing everything, but it's about using everything in the right way, including our mind, our ego. Everything should be directed in the right way.
Yes.
So thank you so much, Pranesvara Prabhu.
Thank you, Mataji. I learned such a nice thing from you today. Yes.
And we've learned many things from you. So we are very grateful, and we are very, very happy to have you. Please don't give us up, and keep coming.
Never.
Keep coming, keep coming. And we pray for your good health.
Thank you.
And
thank you.
yes, so thank you for your association, Prabhu.
Thank you very, very much.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.